Howdy, y'all. Rob here, back in Lair OmnusI. Setting up one more time for another State of the Dungeon address. This one was played out on the night of the 28th of June, 2018. All players eventually got into attendance. So, yeah. Well, I can't do that any much longer. Not that I can't, speak with a southern drawl. Just, it gets annoying. Anyhow, this was an action-packed night to counteract the previous week, which was a little slow and setting things up. But this one made up for it. The group knew that they were going to go hunting down a demon host with the Ministorum, who had currently contained the thing within a single block of the Underhive and have it surrounded with their faithful and all the best weapons that they can bring to bear. And they are keeping everyone out so that they are not contaminated by this demonic filth that they've uncovered. And the party knew that it was going to be a big fight. They were going to be helping with the combat side and spearheading the assault, which they stepped up for. So, starting off, it was brought up that Raynor still had not upgraded his weapon and didn't have the ammunition he wanted. So, he and Fade went off to the bazaar on foot with their armor and with the sign of their station, the Arbides. And they took off. And they have vehicles and such, but they decided they wanted to jog it. Okay. So as they were going out, they passed a shrine to a local saint who happens to look a bit like the comedian Gallagher inspiration. And out from behind it, where he was laying in wait, came an assassin wearing very nice armor and a very nasty plasma pistol to ambush these young Arbides. And he attacked, didn't hit at first, and this was just the two of them fighting, so the others were off. Raynor took a hit again. It didn't look... Raynor has the big rifle, which isn't a fantastic rifle. It's a stock hunting rifle. Fade had his gun, but he's clearly no trained fighter. So the assassin was primarily going after Raynor to try to finish him off so he could take out the Psyker quickly. Almost as if he knew the Psyker didn't have any abilities that could just melt him or anything. So he paid for that because, unless I didn't quite say it, Fade's hand cannon that he's got is a pretty formidable weapon. Plus, it's got 2 barrels, so he doubles the pain if he rolls a good shot. And both he and Raynor got some couple of really nice shots on him. The first one from Fade made him sit up and take notice, and then no, actually, I take it back. Raynor hit him first. Raynor hit him first, punched him through the armor because he used the accurate on his rifle to do more damage. And as the guy was turned around, he shot Raynor, and then Fade hit him. Did some damage, certainly, and I believe Raynor fired the final shot. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But together they took down this assassin, who was quite tough. He was not quite a challenge the whole group would have gone after, but he was waiting for stragglers. And Immediately, Fade's like, I want the gun. Because it was a plasma gun. It was an impressive gun. He moves up, he starts hearing a low whine. The gun explodes, melting most of the body. All there were twisted bits of metal. Also having to do damage to Fade, who gets launched against the wall and injured. And they are lying there bleeding. As soon as the ambush came, they called back to base. So they were coming along with a rotocopter. And to find both of them bleeding and huddled in an alley. Fade tried to heal himself. He has the ability. The Warp had other plans. He rolled. He has a 1 in 10 chance every time he uses his ability, for every die he chooses to use, that something's going to happen. He only rolled 1 die because he can normally make those healing checks easily. He rolled the 9 he needed to have an effect. We just skipped by the miscellaneous warp effects. He went right up to the perils of the warp, of which there's a 25% chance when one of these things happens of happening. This means a major effect is opened up just by him reaching over and trying to heal his body. The warp recoiled and bashed him in the head, knocked off his psychic abilities for an hour, doused him with some corruption, which is basically the warp tainting your very soul, adding a little chaos in there. Too much and you start getting mutations and all kinds of fun stuff. He is on the cusp, the very cusp. But still going forward in danger. It's nice to see that they aren't cowards. The group picked them up on the rotocopter, brought them up in, flew them over to the bazaar, dropped off Raynor in front of the Sharps family shop, where he went in, was introduced to the lass who runs the shop. I can't remember her name off the hand. But he told her he wanted to buy a rifle. And the rifle she showed him is called Ravener. It is an all-black las rifle that is clearly custom. Now, that's almost custom with a K like orcs do. It is a long, black, serious weapon for long-trained killers. It fires bigger shots, has its own custom charge pack, and has a greater range, and has some penetration to it. It's a nice gun, which should make him a bit more effective as a sniper. There's all the nice points. There may be some issues with it, because he's no tech person himself. It's a unique weapon. You kind of have to hope the guy knew what he was doing. But he tried it, and it does put nice holes in people. But he paid everything he had and traded in his hunting rifle for Ravener. He got 3 charge packs, each of which hold 10 shots in the charge, and walked out with a pretty killer rifle. So they go back to the war zone, the cordoned area, to rendezvous with Cardinal Ravenos and the rest of the hierarchy of the Ministorum, who are dealing with this little demon outbreak. And when they got there, they were met by a senior Ministorum official, not Ravenos, who was busy doing other things. But he was met, and the person who met him was followed by 2 Sisters of Battle, who they had not seen. Sisters of Battle, for those who don't know the Warhammer 40k, are female members, usually of the nobility, or orphans of heroes of the Imperium who are trained all their lives in piety, duty, and all the skills that they're going to need to be great people in the Imperium, who then take a vow to join up with one of the cloisters of the sisters. They're trained even harder in the ways of combat, and become superior warriors. Eventually, the successful ones are given power armor and really big weapons and are expected to stand against the greatest threats to the Imperium of Man. That may be anything from Xenos raiders, all the aliens in the galaxy. It could be heretics within, or it could be, demons and such. So, they had a couple of sisters. Not a great deal. There's no, they don't have any fortress specific to these sisters. They basically are in quarters amongst the Ministorum, which are pretty extensive. So, the guys knew immediately the extent and scope of what was going on. They had closed off the entire block, which consisted of 6 hab blocks around one central munitorum. Hab blocks are giant dormitories the size of something of the biggest type of mall that we have, and that as a single big dormitory for the people who will work for, in this case, the Adeptus Mechanicum, the group that's in charge of all the technology of the Imperium, to make things that the Imperium will need. And up to this point, the warehouses are all full, so a lot of these people are idle and doing whatever. So, the 6 buildings around were cordoned off, and in the center was this manufactorum where the demon was supposed to be. So the group goes in. They don't mind taking point. The rest of the most of the warriors for the Ministorum are just their fraternus warriors. They're people who are permitted to fight on the side of the Imperium for the Adeptus Ministorum, but they're not given much for weapons and armor. So a lot of these guys are running around with pipes, cheap guns, and things like that. But they've got their faith, and they've got their righteous zeal. They're whipped into a frenzy by the preachers and up, and sent off en masse to go and take on, challenges that even the guardsmen sometimes quail at. So this time the group was allowed to go by themselves because it's just easier to handle, honestly. And they were the initial strike force to get penetration in so that the forces could plow in and take out the cultists within. And first of all, they met a demon. It looked like a huge trash pile that was kind of filling up one of the streets between 2 of the hablocks. As they approached, it suddenly whipped out tentacles and started attacking them. Well, the group started fighting back, of course. Armed with their combat shotguns, las carbines for GPS, the hand cannon of Fade. Ravener got a workout to begin with, too. He decides he likes it. And, of course, that last rifle from... God, terrible tonight in names. Rex. All, were scoring hits, and they were finding out that this opponent was really tough. First of all the garbage was kind of makeshift armor. They had to blow off the thing first before the shotgun blast could really do much damage. The hand cannon was able to penetrate and do some damage. The Ravener was able to shoot through and do some damage. But the others were being slowed down by all the garbage. Until they got in and started doing some damage, they found out the creature was a demon. Kind of a roughly cone-shaped demon with huge tentacle arms. That itself, it wasn't really incredibly effective. What it was extremely noxious. The only person that it managed to land a blow on, who just couldn't dodge its blow, was Ryder. The actual Inquisitor. Long day today. The actual person who was an arbitrator got hit, and he immediately was inflicted with a very nasty disease, which he still has. It turned his skin black where the blow landed. His flesh is turning gray as it's spreading. Horrible. Truly horrible. When they finally killed it, it exploded in a huge bath of gory sludge that flew out and dosed just about everybody. But everybody made that check, so nobody got inflicted with even more pestilent diseases. With that, the group went in. The whole thing became a series of timed encounters. The timing basically determined the phasing of the next encounter. They could very easily have two counters that could have jumped up on top of them if they didn't go through them quickly enough. This is to kind of prod them a little bit, make them realize that time is going on in real time, so they should hurry and not dawdle, because some of their fights tend to drag out a bit. So once they got past this creature, they looked across the street at the end of the alley. They saw the side of the manufactorum they were heading to. They saw a large group of cultists who were performing some sick ritual to Nurgle, a chaos god of plague and pestilence. That's not generally a good thing, but before the group thought they have to deal with that, a large number of the Fraternus militia boiled out of another side alley and threw themselves at the cultists, squashing them down. The group only had to deal with 3 cultists who were standing kind of dumbstruck by the assault. So they got a free shot, they got to go in. They didn't drop any of the cultists on their opening shot. They chose to spread the wealth around, and yeah, I don't think they really took them all that seriously, honestly. Many of them were just running up so they could get a better shot, because those shotguns are deadly at close range. Well, one of them threw a jar of some noxious liquid. That didn't work so well. The others had las pistols, which are not very good weapons. All the same, I think they managed to score only 1 hit in the whole thing, and it was a fairly trivial shot. The cultists went down fairly quickly. The problem, in large part, was it took a little bit of time for them to take it out, which was just enough time for the sniper, who was sitting inside the manufactorum, to zone in on them. Had they dropped them all in a round or two, would have been different. But it took a little bit. So, by the time they dropped the last cultist, and just as they were getting ready to loot the bodies, because they always loot the bodies, of course, all of a sudden they noticed that on GPS's forehead there was a red dot that was going up to his head. They managed to react before the sniper pulled the trigger. They knocked him down just as the round went where Jippus was. And they eventually saw the sniper, because mostly because Raynor has really good perception, as a sniper should. And he saw that he was standing in a 3rd floor window that was cracked out, and he had basically you could see the entire side of the street. There wasn't any cover. There were no vehicles or cargo or anything in the area. The guy had very carefully picked out a great kill zone. So they knew they were kind of hosed with a sniper who had a bead on them, decent cover for himself, and they didn't have a lick. And they had to run across the open field, or open pavement around the manufactorum just to try to get some cover. Return fire was extremely difficult because it was a long-range shot. Yes, that's exactly what Raynor did. He had his new gun. He tested it out. Jippus is really working hard at helping everybody else. He is a great team player. But when he realized that his gun just couldn't do a lot, what he was really trying to do is do suppressing fire at the sniper, hoping to rattle him. The sniper had an ability that he could not really be pinned. So that didn't stop him. So he shot Raynor. Now, one of the bad things about this sniper was that he wasn't playing fair. He didn't use a standard sniper rifle. His weapon had been blessed by chaos. And instead of firing bullets or laser projectiles or anything, it actually shot bugs. Nasty, nasty little insects about the size of a large cockroach. And this little fella. into his leg. The leg instantly went numb. That's usually a good indication something's not right. What could he do? He was in a sniper fight. He kept hitting. The guy kept dodging. He had cover. He had a lot of advantages, and Raynor didn't have anything going good for him. While he's shooting, Ryder, Fade, and Rex were running full tilt to try to get close enough to do something. Fade is the fastest of the lot. He has a great agility. That's the determinant for how fast you can go in Warhammer. He was sprinting with a purpose. The others were just trying to get up to cover, maybe shoot with their shorter range weapons, something. But being a diviner has its advantages. One of his psychic abilities is called Magic Shot, where he can see where his bullet will land a split second to make sure that it's absolutely going to hit its mark. You can't dodge his magic shot. He only has to make a psychic power roll and he automatically will hit with that shot. So, he finally got up close enough, and even though he's running around with the hand cannon, the sniper knows what a pistol is, and he's like, that's not a threat to me. Too short range. When he knew he'd tagged Raynor by hitting him a second time, so 2 bugs, one in his center torso, one in his leg, he's like, okay, I could deal with this guy with a gun. So he fired, hit him. So now there's now a bug in Fade. But Fade shoots. Rolls, gets his ability, hits. Badly damages the assassin. The sniper. Injures him with a shot, which makes him go, oh, I'm really going to have to worry about that, aren't I? And then I believe Raynor turned around and killed him with another blast from Ravener. One of those orders, anyhow, between the two of them, the assassin died. So, the group ran up to the side of the building. They were a mess. Raynor was down critical damage. Again. Fade was kind of close to critical damage, but he was just past the point where he could then start using his healing abilities again. Unfortunately, it hadn't been 6 hours, so if he tried to use his healing on them again, there was a chance it could have horribly misfired and actually hurt them instead, which really would have been bad. So, he, discretion the better part of valor, did not use his ability. But then they looked at the effect those bullets had. They saw that those bugs were crawling under the skin and moving up the body. There are 2 people in the group who have the skill Medicae, which is what you use to treat injuries and illness. The Tech Priest, Jippus, and although he didn't advertise this because he was pretty sure that Jippus's was better, it turns out that Ryder also has Medicae as a skill now. So, the problem was Jippus didn't have any medical supplies. The closest he had was a knife. So, figuring the bug was the greater threat, he used his knife and cut it out. Did a little damage. Not too terrible. But Raynor had 2 bugs. And he was in critical damage. So, does the first. Not too bad. Not too bad. No, I'm just kidding. He critically botched it. It wasn't a critical botch, but he did badly. Enough that he hurt Raynor some more. Nicked a nerve. I toned down the damage because it wasn't like he took the blow from a huge slash intending to hurt him. Because with the damage that he took, it would have taken him to a blow that would have ripped off his face. Just about as nasty as you can get before killing. that what really was going to happen from a surgical slice from a knife that just went afoul. So instead he nicked the spinal column and gave him a twitch. That's about it. It's still not fun, but yeah. I wasn't going to make him burn fate points to survive surgery. That's not fun. This next roll was a critical. He rolled not one, so through the same injury, just put the knife in and popped out the bug when it tried to crawl up into his brain. So he saved him from that. So then the forces of the Ministorum ran past them, sized them up, decided they were too badly banged up to continue, and they ran into the place. The group started taking stock. Ryder, suffering from some nasty, nasty ailment that was setting in something fierce. Vade, injured almost to the point of critical damage. Raynor, way damaged, way hurt, way into critical damage. Anything more would probably kill him. Jibbis, who was pretty good. I don't think he hardly got tagged at all. And Rex, the guardsman, unhurt. He gets through these things unscathed all the time. Despite the fact that he's got a fairly impressive weapon, he just plays smart and tactical and doesn't make himself the center of attention and skates through what, would have put a lot of other guardsmen on their back. So they look at each other, they're like, do we even want to go on? Can we even go on? And, Ryder's like, well, I'm going in. It's my duty. I will go on. I'm still alive. I will sell my life for the Emperor if I have to. Fade's like, I'm not going in there by myself. Raynor's like, I'm not going in there. I'm hurt everywhere. Jippus is like, I don't know if we can survive this. And Ryder's like, I'll do what my sergeant tells me to do. Rex said that. So they go in. And as a group they go in, and before they decide to go in, the Cardinal and his personal retinue, including 2 Sisters of Battle and a cadre of carapace armor-equipped Ministorum agents, ran past them and into the place. So that was it. They decided they had to go in. The fact that the Cardinal himself went in meant that they must have gotten to the Daemon Host, and he was needed to help fight them. And if the Cardinal was needed to help fight, that meant all of them had the responsibility to get in there and do whatever damage they could. So that's what they did. They ran in, and as they went in, things got more and more crazy. Bodies all over the place. The Ministorum agents were efficient at killing the cultists who were within. They didn't do a lot of stocking. They did no looting at all. Then they find where the sounds of the screaming and all the other horrendous things. They were looking down a door. The light was spilling in from a door down the hallway. Obviously, where the battle was taking place. The problem was they needed to make a willpower roll just to go up to that mind-bending chaos. They didn't have true faith or anything. They just, they knew they were in a bad way, and they were basically confronting the possibility of their own, very serious possibility of their own deaths. So, out of everybody, the only ones who made their willpower roll the first time, I believe, was Fade and Jibbis. They didn't want to go in the first place, so they're like, no, we're going to hang out here, especially since Ryder can't go down there. He was just like, wait a minute, I'll be good in a second. But he couldn't force himself at first. This went on a string of some of Raynor's worst rolls ever. He missed by... To understand severity of how good or how bad you do when you roll, for every 10% that you make a roll by, that's considered a degree of success. And it helps me, the game master, to adjudicate calls and tell somebody just how awesomely they did, or by how close to the skin of the teeth they did, or how just missing, or how badly they botched. And I like to be expressive and use the dice to tell the story. He was rolling 5 degrees of failure, 6. I don't think his willpower is very good, but he was botching left and right. His character absolutely could not force himself to go down that hall. So eventually the group moves up, and they see the Cardinal, one Sister of Battle left, a couple of the members of his retinue still firing. One of them had a plasma gun, the other one had a bolt gun, shooting basically miniature exploding rockets as ammunition. The Cardinal had a power weapon. He was wearing power armor, and he was trying to fight. And in the center was the demon host. It looked like a human who basically his head was shrunken, pushed up to the top of his shoulders, and then his body was expanded outward with a huge demonic face covering his body, which made his arms look tiny and weak, and his legs look tiny. And if you know what MODOK from Marvel Universe looks like, you kind of look like that. So they were trying to fight, and they weren't doing a fantastic job. The Sister of Battle struck him with a power sword. The thing was killing off one of the members of the retinue every round. First thing he did was extend out his arm, grab one of the Inquisitor. The Ministorum agents grabbed him, pulled him in, and devoured him, delivering mockery the whole time. The group fired off a few shots, nothing too effective. It made it very clear that this thing was really tough. Unfortunately, agents of Nurgle are usually pretty renowned for being resilient. This was not an exception. So while the agents were using much bigger guns, they weren't drastically more potent and impressive than the players were. Especially since the next round it grabbed the Cardinal, ripped off part of its face, revealing a void inside, and tried shoving him into the warp. Didn't completely work. He left his legs behind. And the Cardinal was trying to not get shoved into the warp, kicking and screaming. Oh, he's going to get a few insanity points for that. But it didn't completely get rid of him. And oh no, first it actually ripped the Sister of Battle in half, literally just horrendously killing her. And then it grabbed the Cardinal. So the group was faced with very few allies at this point. There was only one other inquisitorial agent left. So the group, again, was trying to fight. And they realized they were going to need their best weapon. So both Rex and Ryder decided they were going to charge in and use their shock maul set to the most powerful setting, which is a power field capable of disintegrating flesh and bone, practically. They ran in. They went simultaneously, which was kind of funny. And I believe they delivered a pair of blows that rocked the thing. It definitely didn't like those shots, but didn't kill it. And Jippus decided his las carbine, kind of a smaller las rifle, wasn't effective. And it really wasn't. He had almost no chance of doing any damage to the demon. And there's no real way to upgrade the damage on these lasers. So he runs into the room and he grabs the bolt gun that was dropped to the ground, the bolt rifle. He's not trained in it, but it has an auto-fire setting, so it gives him a bonus to hit. So he grabs this unfamiliar weapon and, muttering the prayers to the machine and everything like that. We see some interesting things. Raynor has had a succession of horrible initiative rolls. He's soiled himself. He's run in fear. He's whimpered. He finally masters himself, goes in, moves up down the hall while all the fighting is going on. Ryder, this thing is finally focusing on the players. And it looks around and, oh, there's a tasty treat. There's a psyker. Fade. So he tries to force the demon into Fade. Fade's will is strong. Fade resists. That distraction was just enough to cause another distraction. Both Ryder and Rex, with their shock mauls, have used up all of their fate points, the things that allow you to get rerolls and sometimes just luck out and be cool. They're out of fate points. They swing. They both rolled a 99. That's not good. That's a critical failure. And when both of them are attacking the same opponent in melee, weird things happen. So I rolled for the severity of what could have happened. The lowest possibility was like they might have, got their weapons tangled up and one of them might have lost their weapon. A really bad thing would have been they might have hit each other. That really would have been bad because those things could possibly have ended one of them with a direct shot. It would have cut through their armor. The damage is significant, and neither of those boys are weaklings. So, yeah, that could have easily killed either of them. No, I rolled a 99 myself. They hit each other's shock mauls, and they detonated. The energy fields normally would allow them to parry each other, but instead they interacted badly, and boom! Both of them got knocked flat and concussed. The two heavy hitters of the group are down. The Daemon host is badly injured, but it's not dead. Then Jippus rolls with the bolter. There's a reason we do these games. Sometimes it's because the least likely person, the person who's got the least experience out of the whole group, I suspect. Well, maybe Logan's, maybe the player for Raynor is a little less experienced, but hasn't had those wonderful, awesome moments where you just do the right thing and it all fits perfectly. Sometimes even when you have no business doing it. Well, he rolled a really low roll firing that bolter in auto fire, and he ripped a couple of bolts into the Daemon host, and he did some pretty impressive damage with that thing. I believe he even rolled a critical success on one of the shots. He damaged the Daemon host so it was just dangling. Didn't quite kill it, heartbreakingly, really. Except that then Raynor's turn came up. Raynor pulled out his rifle, faced down his fears, drew the bead right between the thing's eyes, pulled the trigger. That was the end of the Daemon host. It was killed. The Cardinal was launched violently back into reality. The demon crumpled, went back to where it was from. The body it was used turned to dust. And by the time it was all over, everybody in the room is suddenly just exhausted and really happy they're still alive. That was the end of the night. It went actually a bit long that night, but a very satisfactory conclusion. They personally contributed to the death of, or destruction of a Daemon host, one of the nastiest creatures in the book. And they had a big part in it. If it had just been the Cardinal and his retinue, they wouldn't have won, despite the fact they had power armor and power weapons and plasma weapons and bolters and all the really cool stuff. It was the Adeptus Arbites that came in and did the right thing and finished it off, which is cool. That was all 100% legit. So that was my State of the Dungeon address. I'm now caught up. And I will be seeing you the next time I have a State of the Dungeon after this next Thursday. Until then, I hope you have many safe and successful adventures yourself, and I wish you farewell.